Series 3. The Mysterious Violinist. It Takes a Lion. Genre: Fantasy Family Drama. Copyright: Independently published August 13, 2025. Author: Dr. Sheree E. Love, PhD. Table of Content. 1. Episode 7 It Happened by Chance. 2. Episode 8 Family Ties Uncovered. 3. Episode 9 It Takes a Lion. Episode 7 It Happened by Chance. Austin and Camilla would only meet with each other briefly until their wedding day. They did not want anyone to discover they would be the ones getting married. The wedding would be over by the time her ex-fiancé arrived back. He had no interest in returning until a month later and did not want to be the one who broke the news to the family. They would find out on their own, is what her ex-fiancé Patrick had said to Camilla. Camilla entering the event hall as some guest had decided to dance. The chamber orchestra was still playing music and Austin was finishing his third-course dinner, taken in by the flavor of his sushi as he tried each one of the 3 dipping sauces. The music played as Austin had took a moment to engage in conversation with other guests at his table. The host of the party, Mr. Vasco, and Mrs. Vasco had taken to the dance floor, being among the other guests dancing to the music. Rosalyn up out of her seat walking around the event hall, deciding to take a moment to stand to stretch her legs. With the waiting staff frequently checking on guests, dinner plates for the third course were being cleared. Cheesecake in several flavors was being served for dessert along with banana cream cupcakes. Rosalyn watched guests dance on the dance floor while she sipped on her champagne. "Let me touch up my lipstick," Rosalyn thought to herself as she began her walk to the ladies' room, looking at several pieces of art being displayed along the way. Choosing the banana cream cupcake, Marian enjoyed the sweetness and how well the champagne blended with it as she gazed around the event hall. Mr. Vasco and Mrs. Vasco had decided to meet with guests on the outside deck where they could have a nice view of the garden. There is a very large lion made of stone that is off to the side on the outside deck. The seating arrangements are placed back away from the parapet, the brick railing along the edge of the deck designed for decorative purpose. The deck's guardrail is designed in brick to prevent falls from elevated areas. That has a lion's paw at both ends of it. Having just 4 wide steps going down to a walking path. I may decide to have a short walk to have a look at the beautiful flowers in the garden. Mr. Vasco had thought as the 2 of them walked onto the deck. Noticing guests were on their way outside for fresh air, the servers were sent in their direction to the outside deck, carrying wine and champagne to offer the guest as the party planner had the outdoor speakers turned on. The guest could enjoy some music. The chamber orchestra had just finished playing the last song. Jean and Evelyn were the first ones to stand near the garden, looking at the beautiful flowers, as 2 couples were dancing. While others were engaged in conversation, Sebastian decided to walk over to Marian, seeing the person she had been talking to walked away. "Would you like to dance?" Sebastian asked Marian. "Yes, I would like that," Marian replied. Getting up from the table as Sebastian reached out his hand to help Marian out of her seat. The 2 of them walked away where they could dance, and dance the 2 of them did, also exchanging contact information, and were smiling as the others could see they were enjoying themselves. The guests were just walking about as the servers continued offering wine and champagne as the music played. One of the guests walking around on the deck as he was drinking champagne stopped by the statue of the lion made of stone. Quite impressive, he thought as he started moving his left hand across the distinctive feature of the lion's face and touching the ears as he started walking away. Suddenly there was a loud creaking sound and he stopped. There was a disturbance coming from the guests that were on the walkway and those guests standing near the garden looking in the direction of the outside deck. The creaking sound continued until the passageway emitted a sound before stopping. It was completely opened right under the outside deck. Security personnel stepped right into action, asking everyone to stay clear until we know what's going on. The passageway was dark, you could not see a thing inside there. Mr. Vasco and Mrs. Vasco, the host of the party, got together with the event planner Mr. Owen, standing back looking to see what was going to happen next. We are reaching out to the owner and should know something in a few moments, the security personnel said to them, as Mr. Owens walked away with him. Well, it couldn't be all the bad. Nothing has happened, Mrs. Vasco said to them. Edward's cell phone rang as he stood listening to the guest waiting to see what was going to happen. Saying excuse me for a moment to his wife as you walked back where no one could hear his conversation. Edward had no plans of saying anything right now unless they had no choice but to reach out to him. Mr. Moore, he said after answering the call, so this is Mr. Owens. There is an issue at the mansion that needs your attention. I understand. I am here at the event this evening and you can give them the authorization to do what needs to be done. Yes, sir, Mr. Owens said to Mr. Moore, continuing on to say to Mr. Owens, if it is safe for us to get a tour, you can give them the authorization, Mr. Moore said. Yes, sir, Mr. Owens replied, and the call ended. With a display of confidence, Mr. Owens, the event planner, along with one of the security personnel, walked over to the host for the event, Mr. Vasco and Mrs. Vasco. Episode 8. Family Ties Uncovered. Mr. Owens, the event planner, along with one of the security personnel, walked over to the host for the event, Mr. Vasco and Mrs. Vasco. The owner has been contacted and security personnel is going to have a look inside. Continuing with his conversation, Edward had walked over with his wife, Mrs. Moore, as security personnel reached the entrance. A flicker of light came on. 4 security personnel continued to enter, not knowing where the light source was coming from. One right after the other, they had entered the opening under the mansion while all the guests and the owner of the mansion were watching. The light source was steady and the security personnel had made a complete walkthrough wearing their night vision, wanting to see as much as they could without depending on any light source. From the looks of it, it's ancient impluvium, a pool beneath the house that could have been used for relaxation and socialization, one of the security personnel said to Edward after the 4 of them had returned from having a look inside. Is that right? Edward replied as he continued to have a conversation with the security personnel. Yes, the 4 security personnel said all at once. And the one in charge of leading the security personnel continued on, saying elaborate in its complex design, the featured pool looked as though it had served as a social gathering place, with marble knobs being able to set different water temperatures with There are 3 stone tables covered in marble that have 2 stone benches at each table. The seats are also covered in marble. No one gave a thought as to why Edward was having a lengthy conversation with the security personnel. And he had not told his wife or other family that he had inherited the mansion. Edward had just continued to lease it out for events. There is a substantial amount to view with there being a lot of dust to clear, but it is safe if you would like us to go alone with you to have a look right now. I would like to have a look right now, Edward replied. Is it large enough for the guests to come along if they like? Edward asked the security personnel as the guests stood around listening since there was some unplanned excitement. Yes, the security personnel replied. If you would like to see the underground pool that has just been discovered under the mansion, follow me along with the security personnel, Edward told the guest. The host of the party were truly wanting to have a look, and following behind Edward they did, and so did most of the guests. One by one as they entered the entrances, 2 security personnel stood by each side of the entrance. This time the security personnel in charge had added 4 more security personnel to ensure that the guests did exit without there being any issues. Edward reminded the guest about the dust as they continued on with the tour. Marian walking Sebastian as her parents Mr. Garnet and Mrs. Garnet were holding hands as the 2 of them entered the narrow way allowing them access under the mansion. Mr. Vasco was walking by some guest and stopped for a moment, being reassuring, saying, as some of you may have heard, it is safe and you can come and have a look. Walking alongside Mrs. Vasco, the remaining guest followed them as they also entered. Appropriate to the situation, one of the guests said, this would be a wonderful space to have a pool party. Another guest, thinking out loud, said, it would definitely depend on the amount of work the pool would need once they check it out. That's true, some guests replied as they looked around. Security personnel were watching the guest as they were looking around. More than Edward might have initially expected after walking up to one of the walls wanting to clear off a picture frame, so did Mr. Vasco, seeing a painting on one of the walls, and asked Mr. Owens if he had anything he could use to wipe it off with. I sure do, Mr. Owens replied, and the guest watched as he walked over to the painting and began wiping it off. The 2 paintings that were cleared of dust by Mr. Vasco and Mr. Moore were family portraits. No one but one person could recognize the couple in the painting. It was Sebastian's great-grandparents. Conveying a connection to the couple they were all looking at in the paintings. They look just like my great-grandparents, Sebastian exclaimed. You don't say. Edward replied and looked over in the directions where Sebastian was standing. Everyone looked over at him. One guest said, I guess you will be going over your old family photos. Mr. Vasco said to the guest, there is nothing left to see until this space gets cleaned up, so the tour is now over. Following behind the security personnel with 2 of them leading the way out and 4 behind the guest to ensure that all guests had left out safely. Everyone gathered on the outside deck with interest in how it opened the first place. Mr. Vasco and Mrs. Vasco had communicated with the event planner to serve more champagne as they figure it out, and then the event would be over. With the guest looking at Mrs. Vasco, she said, it's a little excitement, one would say, and some guests laughed about it. A guest stood up and asked Mr. Owens if he would have security personnel by the passageway to make sure it clear before trying to close it. Yes, I will do that, and turned around, walking over to one of the security personnel. It's secure, Mr. Owens said as he walked back near the guest. Well, possibly not. For certain this might work. My name is Charles Athens, and to make a long story short, first had touched the head of the lion before hearing that crackling sound. Episode 9. It Takes a Lion. Mr. Owens was the first one to ask Mr. Athens to go over to the lion and repeat what he had did. All right, it's worth a try, Mr. Athens said as he walked over to the lion, standing there for a moment. Then he repeated the way, touched the lion the way he could remember. Nothing happened. Wait 1 minute, Mr. Athens said, then remembering he had touched inside of the lion's statue ear with his thumb before he walked away. As a result, it worked and everyone was happy. Confirming the passageway was closing by security personnel, the excitement was not over. The guest would want to return to see its impressive beauty and magnificence once the cleanup was done. With all the waiting staff busy and doing their cleanup throughout the event, there were 2 servers that maintained regular communication with someone and each other using messaging. They were hired to keep an eye on Sebastian. A person wanted to locate his love interest and felt he was hiding her. They wanted something from him and felt she would be the way to get it. The private security he also has, keeping a watchful eye out for his safety, needed to be caught off guard. The servers were their only eyes and they did not want anything left behind. An event like tonight would tell all. Your woman would want you there. It was perfect, so they thought. It was for getting information only. There were too many security personnel and private security to make any move during the event. Message to the person wanting something from Sebastian. Got message they wanted for the evening. Code words, your message is clear, was sent by text message after seeing Sebastian was still with Marion. The servers were perfect. They were able to obtain visual information. Sebastian would be in shock, but in his line of business he really should not be once it happened. Marion is the way in and they were going to make their move soon enough. Kalasaha Falls can be viewed outside through a window from the bedrooms and from the patio at the rear of the Ezra Bed and Breakfast. Located in Franklin on Mountain Drive in North Carolina, that is designed for entertaining and relaxation as well as dining. Privately owned by Sebastian's family, with the particular purpose of being used by those working for his family's company. The top floor loft, living space with its high ceilings and large windows is specially reserved for the Ezra family. Dry Falls can be viewed from the 3rd floor of Ezra Gem Exchange office building windows, the same floor where the conference room is for the Ezra family to have company meetings. Located in Macon County in North Carolina on Maple Street. Ezra Gem Exchange, a 2nd-story building in Allistown, is on Road the Kings Highway in North Bimini. The guest counter is located on the main floor, where customer will stand and select the gems they would like to have a look at. Also having a sitting area for a relaxing environment if the customer asks. Sebastian's office is on the 2nd floor where he works alongside other employees that work for the family business. He travels only when it is necessary. Other times he video chats live where they are able to see each other during the conversation. As the guest enjoyed their last glass of wine or champagne, A server had offered Marion a glass that had a little extra touch. The server was told to act now, and that's what happened. A dose added to her glass would not put her to sleep, but it would cause her to go to the ladies' room. Excusing herself, Marion made her way to the ladies' room, not knowing that there was a housekeeping cart waiting for her. They were going to stuff her in it. Checking with each other, the server were making sure no one else was entering or exiting the ladies' room once Marion had entered. Putting a sign on the door just after Marion had rushed in. Not concerned about the camera. That has been taken care of. Make it fast, the two of the servers were told. They want their hands on Marion now to get to Sebastian. Other guests were sent to another restroom. After turning her head, looking to the left and to the right of her, one server walked in, and as Marion was standing at the sink, the server quickly rushed up behind her, covering her mouth and nose with a smelling agent. The chemical reactions was fast, allowing the server to rush Marion into the closet quickly and forcefully shoving her inside the housekeeping cart, covering her with towels. The server changed into a housekeeping uniform and moved fast, exiting the ladies' room. Removing the sign off of the door and rolling away, with Marion taking her out to the laundry. There was no time to waste. They were in their position, and Marion, stuffed away in a bag from the housekeeping cart, was gone. Confined in a bag and knocked out by a smelling agent as she was being transported away from the mansion. Without anyone having any idea, and guests were still having conversations about the passageway that had been discovered. Sebastian gave a look around for Marion as everyone said their goodbyes, indicating that they would see each other again, as they walked off of the outside deck and were walking their way to the entrance. I can give her a call at a later date, Sebastian had thought to himself as he also was walking his way to the entrance. The event for the night was over, with the guests thanking the host of the event, Mr. and Mrs. Vasco, for a great evening as they left the mansion. Limo after limo stopping, with the driver getting out holding the door for the guest leaving the event to enter, then driving away, and no one had been asked if they had seen Marion.